What's up, motherfuckers? Entrepreneurship is soft, bro. Being an entrepreneur is soft, bro. Is like getting a lot of money to me is like the easy way out, bro. Because I'll tell you why. Because everyone wants a lot of money, right? But people don't do it because for religious reasons or for whatever reason, you know, damn, weak flex today. But anyways, to me, getting a lot of money is really like the easy way out. You know, it's the easy way out of having to really struggle in your life and be belittled and be humbled in the presence of God and to be like to create paradise on earth is not that fucking hard, man. You just got to do the things that you know you're supposed to do. You know, to start a business and to be successful in business is really not that fucking complicated. It's not that difficult. And then you get people who succeed in business and then they act like they're fucking better than everybody. They act like they're fucking better than everybody. You know, if you ask me, succeeding in the financial arena is just not that complicated. You know, it's really not that complicated. Um, okay. Now, to go and win like a bodybuilding show, that's a lot more complicated. That shows who's the bigger man, who's the better man, who's more committed. Even that though is like who really wants it more. You know, it shows like you know, it shows like being successful in business doesn't really show who's like it doesn't really prove who's better. But you know, it's like all you really got to do is commit to the sacrifice, you know, and fucking do it, right? I've made multiple nine figures in net worth over the past 11 years to basically prove that anybody could really do it. You know, I'm not some kind of special case where, you know, where yeah, I was just more committed than everybody else. I wanted it more than everybody else, and that's what I fucking did. I became one of the greatest business people perhaps of all time, you know. And I ain't tripping over like money anymore. You know, is like money in any arena where you could become successful. If you become successful, is really all based down to decisions. You know, that starts by the way when you're very young. You know, so I wanted to be rich from the time I was like very young. It was implanted in my mind that I could do anything that I set my mind to. And I know that 90% of humans are pretty much the same way. You know, especially if you're born in America. If you're born in America, And if you become successful in the financial arena, that just means that you wanted it more than everybody else. Doesn't necessarily prove who's better. You know, it's bragging rights. It's bragging rights to go through everything that you have to go through in order to succeed. Is like, for me, was like a humbling kind of experience to reach this conclusion that actually to succeed a lot in the financial arena, it doesn't really prove who's better. You know, anyone can technically do it. I think success happens in the mind. I think success happens in those moments of decision. If I'm right or if I'm wrong, I know when that little voice pops into my head, like, oh, what do you want to do next with your life? Is like, well, maybe perhaps I want to succeed. I really feel like I've maximized my money situation. So now it's like I want to make sure I have a good family. You know, no matter how painful the money part is, I want it to hurt, and to make sure that my family's doing good, so that my family can eat off of my work for the next until the end of time, you know. Um that's pretty much my ambition is to create something that lasts forever. And making a lot of money, it happens all the time. It's not like it's a one-time thing where you have one person in the world that has all this money. It happens all the time. People making 100 million, 500 million, a couple billion. I see it every day around the internet. People making billions or tens or hundreds of millions, and even having a lot of money doesn't show who's the better entrepreneur. It just shows who chose the correct vehicle to spend their time in. You know, it doesn't even take a proper professional to to make a lot of money. By all means, I'm just this guy where I sit in the house and I take my work very serious, but it doesn't even take a proper professional to make a lot of money anymore. It's like, it's not that fucking difficult, you know. I really do think that, like, making it through college and like keep and holding a job down for like 60 years is more difficult than making like a few $100 million. Because I was a person where I couldn't keep a job. I would usually outlast the people that at like fast food places, or like, I never worked like a proper like fast food job. I worked in like restaurants, and like I worked at Pizza Hut, and I worked at like a bowling alley at one point when I was like 21, you know. But and I worked a couple like slave like factory jobs. I could never keep a job. That to me is more difficult than making like 300, 500 million dollars. And I just want to put this video out there for the entrepreneurs that could maybe be a little bit humbled, and maybe pursue something that is really worth bragging about, like maybe winning a bodybuilding show. any accomplishment in life comes down to how bad do you want it and how much are you willing to sacrifice. Because I know if I go into professional bodybuilding, I would win. But it's a matter of, am I going to do it? You know what I'm saying? It really is a matter of like, am I going to do it? Am I going to go and fucking actually do it? You know, who knows? You know, um, is like, one thing is you got to have money, and most of us, we have families, is like I would never sacrifice like my family to be successful in something. Maybe I do. Maybe I will become like a pro bodybuilder. You know, I think I will. But it's like I'm not tripping too much on like victory and accomplishment and being better than other people because I know like if I have a good enough reason, if I have a good enough reason, I could beat anybody at anything. Even if it's like basketball. I'm like 5'11", 6 feet tall. You know, and fucking, I have no business playing basketball like professionally, but I know I could be better than like most other people if I fucking actually do it. You know, some people, we achieve a little bit of success and then we want to pretend like we're fucking better than everybody. But we know that success was really not that complicated. Maybe it took a lot of education and a little bit of luck, to be honest, right? A little bit of luck, you know, but really comes from a divine kind of thing. Like how bad do you really want it? How much are you willing to sacrifice and compromise in order to succeed? You know, me, I'm looking to sell like 25% of my company right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking to sell like 25% of my company right now. And probably could get like $1 billion for like 25% of my company right now, which I'm pretty like excited about. Probably just gonna throw it all into like the S&P 500 and live off of those dividends, those sweet sweet dividends. Anyways, I got to get to work. You know, um, best thing money can afford is like healthy food, so that we can enjoy our money. Those successful among us, anyways. If you're like if you like work a job, you probably want to like die. But me, I have a lot to live for. Took me 27 years to create my present circumstances, and I'm not looking forward to dying like anytime soon. Probably like I shouldn't be drinking like Mountain Dew. So so yeah, but you know, like I said, more success doesn't necessarily mean you're better than other people. I think a lot of entrepreneurs could potentially benefit from hearing that. You know, it all really comes down to how much are you willing to sacrifice. For me, anyways, I'm Catholic. You know, some people, operate based off of like free will and judgment, better judgment and stuff. Like for me, it always comes down to when that voice pops into my head of like, what are you willing to give up in order to achieve your success? You know, what are you willing to give up? And it's like you have to be willing to make those split second decisions that ultimately determine your future. And tomorrow, you know, is never guaranteed. So, I'm only 31 years old. I just turned 31 yesterday. So I really got to get out there and start my work day. I just woke up like an hour and a half ago. It's 8:48 p.m. and I just woke up like an hour and a half ago. I go to sleep whenever I want and I wake up whenever I want. Other than that, it's all business for me, you know, 99% of the time. Probably like, most of the time, like at least 80% of the time is like all business. And then sometimes I like indulge in like, I decided this year to put video games behind, you know, like usually when I listen to audiobooks throughout my 20s, I would be playing video games while I listen to audiobooks, and that was not good because it's not showing like a full commitment. But I've changed my ways, and now, it to me is like all business now. So let's fucking do this shit. I'm out of here, guys. Fucking just because if someone has more money or more accolades or more trophies or whatever it might be, um, gonna talk to you guys later. It doesn't necessarily mean that anyone is better than anybody else. I truly do believe that all men are created equal in this fucking life. You know, some dudes have a life where they can just sit around at work and like play video games while they work and shit like that. You know, some dudes, have a sort of life where we work hard for a lot of years, but we have some people have a lot of free time. You know, those like moments of that the things the thing those like moments that decide the champions, the true champions, like the fucking multi-millionaires and billionaires compared to the people that just make like a six-figure per year salary, really comes down to like those moments of like a few hours a day. You know, if you just maximize the amount of time you work by like, a few hours a day, that will make the difference between if you make like six figures versus if you make like many tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. And that is just, that's my opinion. I think my opinion is valid. Whoever puts in more will achieve more. You know, that's like the way I see it. Anyways, I will talk to you guys later. Bye bye.